Horror is an incredible genre because of all the different ways it can be explored. As a filmmaker, I find it to be a very satisfying space to play in, and To Hell With You is certainly no exception. But before I dig into how we made this, there will be some spoilers, so if you haven't already seen the film, click the link to check that out first. The initial idea for this film was inspired by cartoons I'd watched as a kid where a character would seek counsel from an angel or a devil on their shoulders. For three characters that couldn't be more different, they begin to realize they're also quite similar, not unlike how the genres of horror and comedy are both unique in their own right, but can work wonderfully together. But underneath all the blood and cursing in this film, I think there's also a lot of heart.
The circumstances that surround us don't have to define who we are.
I assembled a team of friends, most of which had previously worked on our other films, producer Kyle Steinecke, first AD co-producer Joshua Matthews, and cinematographer Matthew Noonan. For casting, I'd written two of the roles with friends in mind, Heebie's Darlings Brett Brooks as Doyle and Aaron Ombie as Esme. We also got some new faces in there with Claire Christie as the mother and Andrew Bourne as Brennan. A neat tidbit for Andrew is that his father actually helped Kyle and I out many years back on our first feature, so it was a cool full circle moment to actually work with him on a project. The priest is played by Matthew Noonan, who's also the DP, which ended up being a really fun cameo.
I'll invoice you.
And the opening narration is done by Zach Brown.
This is the story of a young man named Brennan. Yes, he's got a bright future ahead of him. Fuck this, bye!
Check out the description on this video for the full cast and crew list and where you can look at their work. Once we had our script and our cast and crew locked in, it was time to figure out how to pull the rest of this off, and that basically came down to wardrobe, practical effects, the set build, and working with the actors to find their characters.
And you guys came up with that shit.
With wardrobe, I pulled a bunch of research just based on the general feel I wanted for each character, and then scoured thrift stores and searched online. I wanted each character to have a very different look and their own set of colors. Doyle's got some grimy greens and unappetizing browns to play off his more vile nature. Brennan's neutral, red, blue, khaki look fit with his limbo-like introspective mental state. Esme in pure white made sense for obvious reasons, but it was fun giving a more stereotypical angel color set a sense of style that fit with her tenacious attitude.
Bitch, what? Bitch, what?
Bitch, what?
For her wings, I never wanted those to be anything more than a fun practical accessory, and a friend helped me find those. And her tassel vest was my way of hiding the wing straps. For the other characters, Mom's orange to represent a sense of warmth against the priest's more conniving black. Some of this is obviously a matter of what looks good and feels right, but I love finding ways to use color to play off the characters' personalities.
I looked right into the camera. Oops.
The set was a really fun challenge. We shot this in my wife and I's bedroom the same weekend as another short, It Draws Closer. So we prepped for that short on a Friday, shot it on a Saturday, and then we built the To Hell With You set on Sunday and filmed that short Monday and Tuesday. It was a pretty wild weekend, but we had a great time. The production designer, Megan Lee, aka my wife, helped me figure out the look of the set. The wood paneling does a lot of heavy lifting for the period look. We basically just bought this heavy-duty Velcro to keep it up on the walls. In addition to that, we also had this wrap that we put on the door and some of the molding to match with the wall color. Most of the set dressing is just stuff my wife and I own. And then there were little touches here and there that are fun Easter eggs. The posters on the wall, for example. Johnny Angel and the Spookies is my horror rock band. Bad Decision is a musical project Brett and I had. And The Mages of Rage is a fake band from our other short film, The Mages of Rage and the Desecration of the House of Mimicry. We shot the graduation photo in my backyard. That's co-producer, co-Heebie's founder Joshua David Matthews making a cameo as Brennan's father. For the photos of Brennan and his mom, we just photoshopped some images of them together and gave them more of a retro look, with his younger photos being more aged than others, just as something he's held on to over the years. The other miscellaneous photos adorning the walls are just some vintage pics I got from my mom. I also kept some of my porch plants that died during the winter and threw those in there. I like the idea of this possession being so wicked that it killed any plants in his room. It's a small detail, but I think things like that help give the set some more life. Or death, I guess.
Oh, motherfucker!
For the makeup, I gathered a bunch of different inspirations, and then I always do a few tests myself before I subject my talent to it.
Boo.
The looks for this were Possessed Brennan, Post-Gunshot Brennan, and Doyle's Demon look. For Possessed Brennan, that was mostly just utilizing grease paint, scar wax, and some fake blood. The vomit was just a combination of some crunched up crackers, black food coloring, and some water and corn syrup. The brain bits you see later on were the exact same mixture, but with some red food coloring instead of black. For the gunshot effect, I bought an eye patch, a fake eye, and this prosthetic just to be able to glue something to the eye patch that I could then affix to the skin with spirit gum. Once that was set, I just built on top of it. I used gelatin as the main base. That's something I've been using since I've been making movies as a kid. I mean, it's really cheap, and I think sometimes for very specific effects, it still works pretty well. So I just sort of went wild with that. I figured the more messed up looking, the better. I think I get away with a lot here too, knowing it's going to be mostly covered in blood. For the actual blood splatter effect on the wall, I used some plastic tubing and an air compressor. I learned about this from Film Riot, which if you haven't already heard of that channel, is an awesome resource for filmmakers, so definitely check that out. For Doyle, I went through quite a few looks before I zeroed in on something that felt right. Brett popped over one weekend before the shoot for a later test, and that was great because it was also a chance for him to live in that character and find his voice and personality. I remember we got the makeup on him and then we just went and sat on my porch and he just kind of talked to me as Doyle, and I think that was a great breakthrough moment.
Hey, wait.
Before the shoot, we did an initial Zoom call rehearsal. This was a chance to get together as a group and discuss, ask questions, and dig into the roles a bit more. For me, so much of the directing process is all of that homework beforehand. I want to be able to show up to set with an answer for every question, and I love those open discussions with the cast while we've got the time. Likewise with the shot design, I want to do whatever we can beforehand while there's time to be creative, time to explore, so that when we're rolling on set, I can confidently commit to what I know is the best way to tell the story.
That looked good from over here.
And that's not to say I don't leave room for some on-set magic. I think I'd be doing myself and the team a disservice if I didn't keep an open mind. And we had some wonderful improv moments, a lot of which made it into the final film. But I think that came out of all of us preparing and knowing the characters well enough to give ourselves that room to play.
It's me, your son. Just wanted to say I'm okay and that I love you. See you in heaven.
Did you do this? I always spend a lot of time mulling over my shot list, making sure I'm getting what I need, but also making sure I've got some backup options if we're running behind, or to give myself a buffer to make the time up later on if I realize we do need to spend more time on something. One thing I was back and forth on even into shooting was the ending. The original ending just had Brett sit down, light up a cigarette, and smile. But Brett, Matt, and I got to chatting after our first day and came up with the ending that's now in the film. One thing I hadn't thought of is that we no longer had Claire and she needed to be seen on the floor for that last moment to work. So I decided that's where I'd get my cameo in.
I think that's the one. Yeah. It felt like it.
Everyone did their jobs to perfection, and the whole shoot stayed fun and light. I really enjoyed watching the cast embody their characters and find little things to add into the performances.
Everything felt great.
I remember Brett told me one of his approaches to Doyle was that he was constantly in a state of, did I leave the stove on? Which you can totally see and I think works super well. Andrew's curious nature gives Brennan a vulnerable relatability, and Aaron's sassy but lovable Esme perfectly balances out the dynamic.
That was fun.
Once we had the shoot in the can, I jumped into post. The editing itself was pretty straightforward. We had a handful of VFX shots like Esme's angel transformation, which was just me messing around and combining various elements until it felt like a thing. Esme's laser eyes, which were a combination of stock elements and shining the light across the lens on set to get that flare effect. The jar breaking we achieved by just having Brett toss up some fake glass. When Brennan and Doyle hug and Brennan passes through him, we just shot them separately and combined them, adding some distortion and wispy effects to sell it better. The heaviest post effect is probably Brennan's ghost form. Most of his shots were locked off, and then we always shot a clean plate so that we could go back and then create that transparency effect. The first time he appears, it was important for me to see both his ghost form and his dead form in one shot together. But that was another easy effect done by just shooting multiple layers and comping them together. Once we established that, we had a bloodied up dummy filling in for his body the rest of the film. Initially, I wanted his ghost to be blue, similar to the look of the ghosts in The Frighteners, but I found that keeping his color unchanged was more aesthetically appealing against the set and the other characters. Any other VFX shots were mostly cleanup. For example, the wood paneling didn't go all the way to the ceiling, so in some cases I had to hide the seams. Brett's makeup would also start to pull off around the horns, so I had to go back in and finesse that from time to time. Some were little touches, like giving Brennan yellow eyes when he was possessed by Doyle, or adding a squirt of blood to make something just a little bit grosser. For the ending, when Brennan leaves with Esme, we used a leaf blower for the wind effect, which I've really gotten my money's worth on that portable leaf blower. So somebody was operating that off screen, and then Matt was operating the light to engulf them in brightness, and then I added a little last polish in post to give it more of an effect. The color grade for this was really fun. Matt did an incredible job with the look on set, and then we leaned heavy on the 70s aesthetic and grading. Halation, grain, oversaturating the images. I even softened up some of the visuals to get it away from that really crisp digital look. Just whatever we could do to give it more of an imperfect or aged film look. The thing that really ties the whole film together, though, is the score, and I was delighted to once again work with Tessa Rose Jackson and Darius Timmer. I'll work with temp music in my edit to establish some sense of pacing and tone, but they take that and run with it, and I'm always so impressed with how much they elevate everything. I mean, listen to this end track. They even went as far as to run the entire score back through a tape recorder to give it more of a vintage sound. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this brief making of To Hell With You. This was not a huge crew at all, and I'm really grateful to everyone that came out to help make this happen. I can't thank the cast enough for injecting more life into these characters than I ever could have on the page. We had a really great festival run, won a bunch of awards, and I think that's a testament to the wonderful team that made this all possible. If you're curious about something I didn't touch on, leave a comment below and I'll answer what I can. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.
Show's over. Shoo.